An entire pirate metropolis sank beneath the waves in a single day. This is the true story of Port Royal, the most infamous pirate city ever built. By the end of this story, you will understand exactly how a place of such immense wealth and power was utterly erased from the map. We will explore the frantic final moments of its citizens and uncover the incredible treasures still being pulled from its watery grave centuries later. What does the fate of a city built on sand and sin truly tell us about the limits of human ambition? By 1692, Port Royal was a name whispered with equal parts greed and fear across the seven seas. This was not a hidden pirate cove, but a full-fledged English colonial city, the official capital of Jamaica. Yet it openly served as the headquarters for the most notorious pirates and privateers of the age. Think of it as the Wall Street of plunder, a place where immense wealth was counted, spent, and squandered with breathtaking speed. The harbor was a dense forest of masts, ships unloading chests of Spanish silver and gold looted from merchant galleons. The streets were a chaotic, vibrant mix of sailors, merchants, enslaved laborers, and the infamous Brethren of the Coast, all drawn by the promise of fortune. Taverns and brothels lined the waterfront, their doors never closing, the air thick with the smells of salt, rum, and smoke. Here, a man could lose a fortune at the gambling tables in one night and set sail the next morning to steal another. The city's most famous resident was the privateer Henry Morgan, a man who blurred the line between legal privateer and outright pirate. His successful, brutal raids on Spanish cities filled Port Royal's coffers and cemented its reputation. He was celebrated as a hero, eventually even becoming the lieutenant governor, a clear sign of how deeply the pirate economy was woven into the city's very soul. This was a society built on sand, both literally and morally, where every day was a reckless celebration of newfound riches and power. But such a city, perched on a slender sandspit, was living on borrowed time, its foundations as unstable as the morality of the men who ruled it. The morning of June 7, 1692, began like any other in the bustling pirate capital. The sun beat down on the crowded wharves, the air buzzed with commerce and crime, and life moved at its usual frantic pace. Then, at 20 minutes before noon, the world ended. A deep, subterranean roar was the only warning before the ground itself began to convulse in a series of violent spasms. The sandy spit upon which Port Royal was built instantly turned to liquid. Solid earth became a churning, grasping Styx and swallowing everything in its path. Brick and stone buildings, symbols of the city's immense wealth, simply slid off their foundations and disappeared into the boiling sea. The very ground people stood on was pulled out from under them. Water rushed in to fill the voids, creating a horrific whirlpool of debris and drowning victims. Within mere minutes, 2/3 of the city was simply gone, consumed by the ocean. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a man named Louis Galdi, a French merchant who found himself at the epicenter of the chaos. As the earth split open, Galdi was swallowed whole, plunged into a dark, suffocating pit. He must have believed those were his final moments, but then a second massive shock erupted from the depths. The same earth that had swallowed him violently expelled him, catapulting him out of the fissure and hurling him far out into the harbor waters. Miraculously, he survived, pulled from the sea by a boat. His incredible story of being buried and then unburied by the earth encapsulates the sheer, terrifying power of that day. The initial quake was only the beginning. As the seabed shifted, it displaced an enormous volume of water, sending a series of tidal waves crashing over the remains of the city. These walls of water finished what the earthquake had started, scouring away entire streets and washing countless souls out to sea. The taverns that had echoed with raucous laughter now lay silent under fathoms of water. The warehouses stacked with pirate gold were buried under sand and rubble. The most wicked city in the world was not just destroyed, it was erased, its arrogance buried beneath the waves in a single, cataclysmic event. For those who survived, clinging to wreckage in a suddenly silent harbor, the world they knew had literally sunk beneath their feet, leaving them to wonder what terrible force they had awakened. For centuries, the sunken pirate city existed only in legend, a ghost story told by sailors. Then, in the 1950s, a new kind of explorer arrived, armed not with cutlasses, but with scuba gear and sonar. Underwater archaeologists began the painstaking task of peeling back the layers of sand and time to find the real Port Royal. The site presented immense challenges with strong currents, low visibility, and the constant risk of collapsing structures buried in the silt. Yet what they found was worth every difficulty. They uncovered not just a few scattered relics, but entire streets and buildings preserved in a watery tomb. A tavern, its brick walls still standing, was found with intact wine bottles and pewter tankards scattered on the floor, as if the patrons had just stepped away. In one building, archaeologists discovered a room full of clay pipes, their bowls still stained with tobacco from that final morning, but perhaps the most haunting discovery was a single pocket watch. Its hands were frozen forever at 11:43, just minutes before the first tremor shattered the world. This single artifact captures the sudden, absolute nature of the catastrophe. These finds are more than just treasures. They form a perfect snapshot of daily life in a 17th century pirate port. The mix of expensive imported goods alongside simple, everyday items paints a vivid picture of a society of stark contrasts, where immense wealth coexisted with rough, transient living. Every recovered shoe buckle, every piece of eight, every preserved wooden spoon confirms the historical accounts of a city both incredibly rich and brutally harsh. The archaeological evidence does not just support the legends of Port Royal's wickedness and wealth, it brings them to life with a tangible, silent clarity that speaks across the centuries. So why did this happen? The question echoed for generations. For the deeply religious people of the 17th century, the answer seemed terrifyingly simple. This was divine retribution, God's righteous punishment for the city's unparalleled wickedness. Preachers across Europe and the Americas pointed to Port Royal as a modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah, a city so consumed by greed, piracy, and vice that it had been literally swept from the earth by a cleansing hand. The timing of the disaster, striking in the middle of a bustling workday, only reinforced this belief in a sudden moral reckoning. Yet beneath this powerful narrative of sin and punishment lay a more tangible, and in many ways more frightening, scientific truth. Port Royal was built on a geological time bomb. The city sat on a narrow sand spit, a long, loose accumulation of sand and gravel that was essentially unstable by its very nature. When the massive earthquake struck, the violent shaking caused a phenomenon known as liquefaction. In simple terms, the water pressure in the spaces between the sand grains increased dramatically, turning the once solid ground into a temporary liquid. The city's foundations did not just crack, they instantly dissolved, swallowing buildings and people whole. This scientific explanation, however, does not complete the picture. Human ambition played its own fatal role. The city's legendary wealth had fueled a frantic, haphazard building boom. Grand brick and stone structures were erected quickly and often poorly, their heavy weight pressing down on the unstable sand. There was no urban planning for earthquake resistance, no understanding of the risks they were taking. The city was quite literally built on sand, and its rapid, reckless construction amplified the natural disaster into a total catastrophe. This combination of a morally hazardous environment and a physically hazardous location created a perfect storm. It forces us to ask whether the city was doomed by the ground beneath it or by the choices of the people who built upon it. The legend of a curse persists because it offers a moral to the story, but the reality of liquefaction and poor planning reveals a far more complex and unsettling truth about the limits of human enterprise. Port Royal's legacy is a story written in water and sand. It rose from a quiet coastal outpost to become the richest and most notorious pirate haven in the world, a place where fortunes were made and lost with the tide. Its end was just as swift, a single morning of unimaginable violence that erased 2/3 of the city from the map, silencing its raucous taverns and burying its ill-gotten treasures. For centuries, it existed as a cautionary tale, a stark warning about the perils of building a society on foundations of both moral and geological sand. Today, its sunken streets offer a different kind of lesson. They are a perfectly preserved window into a lost world, an archaeological gift that has given historians an unparalleled look at 17th century pirate life. Every recovered artifact, from the frozen pocket watch to the humble clay pipe, adds another piece to the puzzle, transforming legend into tangible history. The city that was wiped away now speaks to us more clearly than ever from its watery grave. Its story forces us to ponder the fragile line between ambition and hubris, and how quickly the greatest of human achievements can be reclaimed by nature. So what do you think? What other sunken cities or forgotten pirate mysteries capture your imagination? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the depths of history, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories from the shadows of the past.